Hello, this is Ed Rigsbee, and thank you so much for attending the November 2022 live keynote speaker showcase put on by the Cigar Peg. All of the people that present in our showcases are nominees for the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. The Cigar Peg administers the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. The Cigar Peg is a 501c3 nonprofit. So just want to let you know that there will be a holiday showcase coming up mid-December. First time we've done that. And instead of our usual half a dozen speakers, we'll have about a dozen. So with that being said, let's jump in to our first speaker, all the way from Hawaii, Jeff Owens. In the high-stakes world of hostage negotiation, the ultimate outcome is to end the situation safely without the use of force. To do this, negotiations use specific strategies that guide the other person to willingly change their behaviors in a positive direction. Strategies that you can use to become more persuasive with others and as a leader to gain greater employee buy-in and cooperation. Jeff Owens uses his real-world experience as a former police hostage negotiator, certified threat manager, and certified speaking professional to help others and teams have better communications, reduce negative conflict, increase employee retention engagement, and improve the bottom line. I give you Jeff Owens.
Jeff Owens, I'm here to work with you. This was the introduction I used when I was called out to a hostage or barricade type situation. And there's a reason for that. In our interactions with others, we often set the tone for everything that's going to follow in that first few minutes in which we're dealing with that person. That introduction told them that I was not there as an adversary to take control and make demands of them. That introduction told them that I wanted an alliance, a partnership where we could work cooperatively to address an issue, solve a problem, resolve a situation. When I was a police officer, the ability to communicate effectively was a very valuable tool. When I became a hostage negotiator, it became critical. In a hostage situation, in dealing with a suicidal person in distress or a very distraught person who's unable to make rational decisions, there is no BATNA, no best alternative to a negotiated agreement. I needed to be effective in influencing the behaviors of others. Now, there's a direct relationship between communication and influence. So let's focus on communication because ultimately our ability to influence others, our success as leaders in sales, in employee engagement and retention, in influencing people in and outside of work, is impacted by how well we communicate. I was and still occasionally am asked by people, well, what did you say to people in these high stress situations that got them to be cooperative? As if there was some magical words or phrase, a script that we could recite that would compel them to follow me and do what I told them to do. In case you're wondering, no, there isn't. But there are communication strategies and steps to follow that increase our ability to influence other people. As an example, I was called to a barricade situation. Officers had tried to serve an arrest warrant on a known drug dealer who promptly locked himself in his house, and it was known he had weapons, so they called the SWAT team. SWAT team arrived, but when they approached, he threatened to kill himself by injecting himself with bleach while waving a syringe in front of him. I eventually got the call, and within 15 minutes after I engaged in conversation with him, he was in a police car on his way to the station to be booked. The SWAT team lieutenant just about went nuts. He couldn't believe it. What happened? He's, Jeff, we've been here for over 3 hours trying to convince this guy to come out. You arrive, and within a few minutes, he surrendered. why don't you just teach us the words you use, and then we can get people to give up and we won't need to call you. I told him it had nothing to do with the words I used or what I said. He's like, what are you talking about? What did you do? I said, simple. I listened to him. By listening, I gained understanding of why he was acting the way he was, what he needed in order to feel like it was okay to surrender, and how I could communicate that to him effectively. My willingness to listen and understand established a relationship of trust. So when I offered a way out, he was willing to accept it. So why couldn't the SWAT people get him to surrender? They made the same mistake that most people make in dealing with other people. They were trying to achieve a solution, solve a problem, before they empowered their influence. Empowering our influence is the key to getting people to be cooperative with us. Hostage negotiators and people who are exceptionally effective business negotiators, superstar team builders, highly influential leaders use specific communication strategies or steps to empower their influence. Now, of those steps, first, and before there can be anything more than just a sheer luck chance of success, is to gain an understanding of the why. If we understand why, it will inform what. Once we have informed what, that will empower how we will address the why. So we need to understand why this person is acting the way they are. Why have they taken the position they have taken? What are their motivators and their inhibitors? Understanding why is probably the most important step of all. And it is the first step on the pathway to interpersonal success. With that information, we can now start to move forward towards our next step. That next step is empathy. To gain empathy. Now understand, empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is sharing the feelings of another person. I had no interest in sharing the feelings of the people that I was dealing with as a hostage negotiator. But empathy is understanding the feelings of others. It has nothing to do with agreeing with them or signing on as a part of it. But empathy says, I understand those are your feelings and they are real to you. Understanding now expresses itself as respect for the person and the situation in which we are operating. And when respect is given, it is most often also received. Which leads us to our third step on our journey, establishing rapport. Establishing a rapport is really establishing a relationship of mutual respect in the moment, which allows for the existence of trust. That person in the house had a relationship of trust with me because I showed that I was interested in that person, what was important to them. And that's what got them to give me the cooperation. So once trust has been established, it empowers our influence. And once we empower our influence, we can now deliver our message with a much higher chance of success, getting people to willingly follow your lead. But there's something more. While what you say is important, how you say it is even more important. Words carry information, and they are important. But our tone, our volume, our speed, our pace, our inflection carry the message. We need to be very, very careful that our words and our message are in harmony. For example, if my wife tells me, fine, do whatever you want, do I listen to the words or do I listen to the message? I'm not suicidal. I listen to the message. If I tell somebody, I wish I could tell you how happy I am for you, that would come across as pretty positive. but using the exact same message, those exact same words, I wish I could tell you how happy I am for you. Changes the message entirely. So I share these with you very, very briefly because we only have a brief amount of time here. But I wanted to give you some value. You've invested your time. I wanted to give you some value. So I shared these steps with you, but knowing these steps is important. The ability to walk the steps is even more so. And that's what I do. I speak on how to put these steps into action. And I work with leaders and teams to improve communication, reduce negative conflict, increase employee engagement and retention, and help to improve your bottom line. I'm Jeff Owens. I'm here to work with you.
Okay? Thank you, Jeff. That was awesome. I got to say, I can't imagine how many executives that hear that message dealing with people that they have troubles dealing with. And it seems that you gave them a very clear path, almost a recipe for dealing with difficult situations. So that is awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to our second speaker for the day. Bill is the CEO of the Ganon Group, a communication coaching firm. Bill speaks on sales training, executive presence, and public speaking. He calls himself a communication plumber. He finds where communication is clogged in your company and clears the pipes. Here is Bill Ganon.
Thank you, Ed, very much. Our state of human communication is under attack, and it's wreaking havoc in business, government, and our society in general. Distributed workforces now rely on technology more than ever for connection. Typing is the new talking. Webcams are the new person-to-person. More automation means less human-to-human interaction. Broken communication costs companies millions a year in lost new revenue, in customer service, even running the company itself. Heads are buried in smartphones. Today's 20-somethings have had their faces in a smartphone since middle school, some earlier. We hear a lot about newer sales teams that are averse to making in-person sales calls, even phone calls, in preference for email or texting. Even my own 28-year-old, when I call him up and my call goes into voicemail, there's no room in the voicemail to leave it. And when I call him to give him a hard time about it, he says, "Dad, I haven't checked my voicemail in a year." No one uses the phone for that. It's all texting. In government, both sides of the aisle seem to be cemented in their points of view, unable to represent our constituencies and move the national agenda forward. And you know what? Whatever happened to healthy debate and disagreement in the voting populace? That's degraded to getting radical opinions, even radical behaviors. Keyboard cowards are everywhere, typing thoughts they would never say in person. Our traditional brain processing of receive, react, and reply has deteriorated to ready, fire, aim. Our human conversation is broken, and I attribute it to two key factors: speed and selection. Let me talk about speed for a moment. Since the early civilizations of some 6,000 years ago, the primary way that humans interacted was how? Face to face. The whole human condition was at work. Body language, hand gestures, eye contact, even what people wore, all communicated something from one human to another. Our early culture of tribes with elders handing down wisdom to next generations were all done verbally around the campfire, storytelling. And sure, later on we sent mail and we used the telephone, but don't forget those were still human-to-human tools. For 6,000 years, the way our brains processed communication was primarily unchanged until, wait for it, the 1990s, when email hit the mainstream. Then over the next 30 years, our communication brain process went into warp speed. We had email, the internet, mobile phones, texting, social media, all combined to accelerate this human communication processing speed well beyond anything humans have known for 6,000 years. And in only the last 30 years, not only has our ability to receive, react, and reply far exceeded our evolutionary brain speed limit, but the expectation of our faster responses is one of the basic drivers of stress and feelings of being overwhelmed and disconnected in today's workplace. In his recent best-selling book, A World Without Email, author Cal Newport sums this up very well. He says, the flip side of deep evolutionary obsession with one-to-one interaction is the corresponding feeling of distress when it's thwarted. So much in the same way our attraction to food is coupled with the gnawing sensation of hunger in its absence, our instinct to connect is accompanied by an anxious unease when we neglect these interactions. And I think what he's saying is we miss our tribes. The second thing I want to cite is selection. Social media has enabled us to pick and surround ourselves with only the opinions and facts that are aligned with ours. Less exposure to conflicting viewpoints results in lower tolerances for differences, greater tendency to simply broadcast your point of view, and easily filter or outright dismiss any opposing ones. When you combine this with the higher speed of respond right now, get it out quickly, the net result is communication roadkill. It's like trying to drive in a NASCAR race and the only thing you're looking through is a paper towel tube. We're going too fast and we're looking at things too narrowly. We're not communicating the way our brains were evolved to. And we have to find ways to bring that natural primal balance back. Let me suggest 4 basic strategies. And since I spend a lot of time with sales teams, they love acronyms. So why don't we all have one? And here's your acronym, okay? SALE, S-A-L-E. The S is for speak more, email less. Use the phone for the purpose it was originally designed for, connecting human beings voice to voice. You know, the human voice is a wonderful thing with obvious and subtle differences that no typed words can ever duplicate. When voices meet, agreements come easier, and also disagreements are handled, even if the end result is agree to disagree. The human brain still has a big advantage over artificial intelligence, common sense and intuition, and both of those are brought out way more easily by voice. The A of our acronym is for ask questions. Be inquisitive. Behind every belief or assertion is a why. One of the best ways to repair communication is to encourage communication. Probing why people do what they do, finding out why they believe what they believe is one of the best ways to get conversational ping pong started. Here's 3 handy words that'll make you a better communicator. Tell me more. The L, if you haven't been able to guess by now, is for listen. And if you're going to make a commitment to speak more, may I suggest you also make a commitment to listen with just as much interest. You know the adage, God gave you 1 mouth, 2 ears. One of the biggest holes in our communication in today's society is the ability of active listening. And technology most certainly stifles active listening, if not downright destroys it. This was from an early mentor of mine, and I'll share it with you. Speak like you're right, but listen like you're wrong. And the final E of our acronym is empathy. The importance of making the other person feel like you're not only listening to them, but truly trying to understand them. Technology most certainly limits our ability to transfer empathy. Body language, eye contact, voice intonation, allowing space for the other person to speak are far better executed face-to-face than they are through technology. So here it is, folks. Do me a favor, speak more, ask questions, listen, show empathy. These are the foundational building blocks of repairing our broken human communication. Now, obviously for my keynotes and when I work with groups like yours, we dive into this way deeper and find ways to integrate all of this into your industry or business. But if these subjects sound interesting to you, your company, or your association, I would be honored to have the conversation with you. I'm Bill Ganon. I'm the CEO of the Ganon Group, and I'll leave you with the final note. One of the biggest problems with communication is the assumption it's taken place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Very interesting. Assuming communications taking place. Excellent. Let me move to the next speaker. Next speaker is Dan Knight. Dan is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel, and among his assignments, a combat leader in Vietnam. Since retirement, he has become an award-winning speaker and writer who has helped thousands of managers become more effective decision makers and innovators. In the past, he was the vice chair of the Creative Education Foundation and led a new mission to engage and develop the next generation of creative thinkers and innovators. He also is a longtime seminar leader for the American Management Association and contributing editor for Strategic and Leadership magazine. And worth noting, in 1988, as a senior USA official in northern Turkey, he turned on the lights in the last village to receive electrical power. What an honor. So please welcome Colonel Dan Knight to present Deal with It, Avoid 3 Major Decision-Making Pitfalls. I give you Dan Knight.
Thank you, Ed. Really appreciate that. The 3 major decision-making pitfalls often occur when we're trying to solve complex and uncertain problems. So let me start by giving you a brief explanation of these problems. The first one is lack of clarity. Second, knee-jerk, solving problems too fast. And the third one is analysis paralysis. Pitfall 1, lack of clarity, usually occurs when we fail to provide a clear definition of our problem and the assumptions behind it. One way to deal with this is to provide information that's relevant and reliable. The second is knee-jerk, solving problems too fast without considering the consequences of your actions. I like to say sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. And one way to cure this pitfall is to do what I call the 4 Ds. And the first one is do it if it's important. Do it now if it's important and urgent. Go ahead and do it now. The second D is delegate it if it's appropriate. The third D is delay it if further study and analysis is needed. And the fourth is drop it if it's of no value. The third pitfall is analysis paralysis. It means solving problems too slow, usually because the risk of fear of failure. I like to say perfection is the enemy of excellence. So now one way to cure this problem is to break it down into steps, small steps, test the steps, and evolve to a complete solution. So let me give you an example from my early career. I was the commander of U.S. Army Field Station Korea, and almost every it was an intelligence collection site, and almost every week the North Koreans would threaten to invade the South. So it was a high stress time for me and all of my colleagues. One day my boss came to visit me to check on the modernization of our intelligence collection sites. And when he came, I started a rant about my disappointment and unhappiness with the Korean luxury tax. This was because our soldiers could go to PX, buy a stereo or a TV set, and they were tempted to sell it on the black market and make a significant profit. So lo and behold, what happened is one of my senior sergeants fell subject to this. And I was very upset because he was a bad example for our troops. And also I would have to reduce his rank probably and reassign him and ruin his careers. So I was concerned about that. And as I wind down my rant, I noticed that Colonel Parker was staring at me, and suddenly he slapped the table, and I saw the coffee wavering in the cups and almost spilling out. And he said, "Dan, when you have problems like this, deal with it. Now, tell me about our collection sites. How is the update coming along?" I knew in that moment that I had to take this problem and act on it, not and clearly know what I was about, and not knee-jerk or overanalyze the problem. So here's what I did. First, I got to the heart of the problem, which was the sergeant's lack of setting an example for the troops rather than blaming the South Korean luxury tax. Second, I stopped the knee jerk by avoiding being upset and about hurting the sergeant's career. And I had to do because I had to do what had to be done. Third, I avoided analysis paralysis by breaking the problem down into steps. First, I talked with my executive officer and my sergeant major. Then I called the sergeant in to get his side of the story and make sure he understood the impact that his behavior had had. And then I administered appropriate punishment. So how about you? I think you know that many complex, uncertain, ambiguous problems are out there and need solutions. Problems like the cybersecurity that we're faced with, employee turnover, supply chain problems, just to name a few. And without a doubt, you'll want to avoid the three major pitfalls I discussed in order to be an effective problem solver and decision maker. So in closing, let me add that it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope you will, if you want further discussion, please contact me. Feel free to contact me at fivestardecisions.com. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Dan. So So Dan, I'm kind of inquisitive of what the actual penalty was for that sergeant. So maybe in another venue you can answer that question, not
Well,
here.
then you'd probably want to know his name too, right?
Yeah, well, there is that. Thank you, Dan. Our next speaker was recognized as #1 of Engagedly's top 100 global HR influencers in 2021. Vivian Blade is a sought-after leadership expert and thought leader. She works with the world's top brands to build better, more resilient workplaces, equipping leaders to solve pressing burnout, turnover, and workplace culture challenges. Vivian is the author of 4 books. Most recently, the Amazon #1 bestseller, Resilience Ready, The Leader's Guide to Thriving Through Unrelenting Crises and Influence in Talent Development. I give you Vivian Blade.
Thank you, Ed. I want you to meet my grandson, Novak. Novak is 2 years old and he loves to read books with his Gigi. That's me. I just love it. Is there anybody else who's a grandparent? Isn't it just the best thing? The experiences that children have with us, the way we engage and interact with them, talk with them, invest in them, and love them, have such an influence on how they develop, how they grow, and how they thrive, and often in ways that we don't even realize. The same is true in our professional lives. How we engage and interact with our colleagues, our customers, how we talk with them, how we interact with them, how we invest in them, love them. It has such an influence on how those relationships develop, on how they grow, and how they thrive. And often in ways that we don't even realize. It's important for us to be intentional about how we influence. Today, I want to challenge your thinking about influence. I want to introduce a framework for how to scale your influence and share with you a strategy that can get you on the path to elevating your influence, to elevating your credibility, and your impact. Let's begin by exploring what influence is. How would you define or describe influence? What are the words that come to mind for you? Influence is how we have that effect on other people, how we move others, their thoughts, their emotions, their behaviors, and their actions. Now, I want you to think of someone who has been influential in your life. Why were they such an influence on you? That person that you have in mind is probably someone who you look up to. It's probably a role model. They may even be a mentor, a manager who genuinely cared about your success. Their opinion is highly regarded, not because they're in a position of authority, but because they have earned your trust. So what we've described here is a person of influence, someone who is influential. Compare that to a person who is an influencer, someone with a goal or an outcome in mind who needs to move others to their way of thinking or to take a certain action. Now, in fact, there will be times when you'll be an influencer. There'll be times when you need to persuade, when you need to influence through your authority or persuading or getting someone to like you, where we use those various influence approaches that we have in our toolbox. There are times when you will be both an influencer and influential. If you want to gain and earn greater credibility and impact, you must go beyond being a good influencer to becoming influential. You must become a person of influence. So how do you get there? I challenge you to think about how you influence at a deeper level, much like the individuals you thought of who are important in your life. In my research for writing my influence book, I found that there are 5 foundational principles that influential people and organizations operate by: social capital, courage, authenticity, leaning in with passion, and engaging a diverse and inclusive workplace community. Today, let's explore the principle of authenticity and how this core relational principle can help you scale your influence. Chameleons are reptiles that have the ability to change their skin color, to regulate their body temperature, to protect themselves. They also possess a long projectile tongue that they use to catch their prey. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, I can think of someone who reminds me of a chameleon. They change their opinions with the wind, and they may lash out from time to time with hurtful words and actions. If you're authentic, you're self-aware and astutely conscientious in your interactions with others. People know what to expect from you because of your consistency. You're not arrogant, realizing that you're not, and you don't have to try to be perfect. You own your mistakes and you apologize for any hurt or harm that's caused. You don't try to control other people's opinions or their actions, but you're honestly interested in different perspectives. Even when a situation is sensitive or requires your toughness, your motives are genuine. You're that same person, no matter what is required of you or who you are around. You don't have to be somebody else. You're comfortable with who you are, always striving to grow and give of your best. One step that you can take today to scale your authenticity is to learn to be adaptable, not artificial. Sometimes stress or being in an uncomfortable position or situation can turn you into that chameleon. We can be less in control of our emotions and our actions when stress arises. So, what can you do to help you adapt authentically? Make sure that you're checking in on your values, which are your North Star. They keep you grounded in your life. As we close, I want you to remember that influence is truly more about how you live than what you do. Let's work to bring the human element back in. And when you scale your influence, you elevate your credibility and impact, which is essential for your professional success today. Are you ready to be influential? I'm here to help. I work with organizations to build better leaders and better workplaces. Let's work together to enhance yours.
Thank you, Vivian. I would say that anybody that's looking for a completely authentic speaker should give you a call. That was excellent. Hadn't really thought a whole lot about the difference between being an influencer and being influential. Very good. Thank you very much. As we move on, many meeting planners, many of you, have probably read in various meetings magazines like Convene magazine put out by PCMA, Meetings and Conventions magazines, Smart Meetings, that one of the real challenges in a meeting is engaging the attendees. Now, we all understand that you've got to have great speakers at your meeting, because if you don't have great speakers, people start zoning out. And that's why we do these showcases, to bring you great speakers. And yet there's still one more element that you might want to consider. And that element is beyond a great speaker. How else can you engage your audience members? In just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Dale Irvin, who is the world's only professional summarizer. And it's fascinating watching what he does. He will come to your meeting, whole meeting. He will attend the different events, and usually in the morning or at lunch or whenever, however you organize it, he will do an update. And I'll let him tell you more about how he does his update. But what I want to say about this is that I know so many people, including my wife, that have been to so many meetings, that's watched Dale perform, that, you know, the feedback is, well, the speakers were awesome. It's this continuity of having a professional summarizer speak at the end of each lunch or day or whatever. Dale can talk about that. But it's just, it's amazing. So I want to turn this over to Dale Irvin, who has been listening live to the speakers, and he's got some comments. So Dale, I'll let you take it over and you can talk more about what you do.
Thank you, Ed. That was a delightful introduction. You forgot the part about the fact that I'm in the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame or in the Professional Speaker Hall of Fame, but that's okay. It's really not important. How you folks doing? Good. Ed told you what I do. I go to meetings, both virtually and live, and I listen to everything. I participate in everything. And then throughout the day, I deliver to the audience a recap, a summary of what they should have learned, you know, had they been paying attention. And it's amazing, I've been doing this for years, is that people will remember the important parts that they heard when they hear them a second time in the form of a comedy monologue that I write on the spot. And that's what I did today. I listened to all of the speakers today. I took notes, and now I'm going to tell you what I heard from the speaker. First, we started out with Jeff Owens, who is a hostage negotiator. And he used to introduce himself to hostages by saying, "I'm Jeff Owens. I'm here to work with you." We got to get this man to Kanye West. He needs more help than anybody, you know? I mean, and now he's lost so much money, he's had to sell off 3 letters in his first name. So now he's just known as Yee. He had to get rid of the other. And then let's see. Oh, he said communication is key. He said people ask him, "What did you say to the people that made them listen to you?" And it's very easy. Jeff would sincerely say, "You know, you may," and I repeat, "you may have already won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes." And you know, they want to make sure that they know. Let's see what. Sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. Why is important. Why informs what, who empowers how. And as it's always been, who's on first? Empathy. Empathy is understanding the feelings of others. This is also the thing that puts the biggest challenge into a marriage. You know, I admit I have to fake it on that end. And then the other thing is establishing rapport. Rapport. What is rapport? That's when you pour yourself a drink and it's empty, then you re-pour. And that seems to take care of a lot of the problems. And he said, words and message need to be the same. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you. I was hoping everybody get that. All right, then we heard from Bill Ganon, who calls himself a communication plumber. And he's really needed at this time because the political speeches I'm hearing are so full of BS that I need somebody to unclog my pipes. And he said, today, our faces are buried in cell phones. And then he went on to say something else, but I was looking at my phone. And people 6,000 years ago, they communicated face to face and they were naked. So that's how you get stuff done, my friends. Okay, and then we did fine for 6,000 years until somebody invented email. And I got to tell you, though, before the invention of email, never, ever did I hear anything from a Nigerian prince about how much money he was going to give me. So God bless email for that. And social media, you're allowed to hang out with people just like you so that you don't drive a NASCAR race by looking through a tube from your paper towels. Duh, you'll die if you do that. Come on, don't ever do that. And speak more and email less. Talk to people, even if it's on the phone, and even if you have to leave an email or a voicemail that nobody looks at for a year. Oh, that was the S, is speak more. The A was ask questions. Tell me more. Again, not a good thing to say to your wife. And then L is for listen. I think he said listen. I was checking my phone again. And then E is for either empathy or equestrian, as in get off that high horse and get things done. That brings us to Dan Knight, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Knight, who in 1988 turned on the lights in the last village in Turkey, which never had electricity. Then he turned them off again. Then he flicked them on again just to mess with people, And let's see, his decision-making pitfalls. One is lack of clarity. That's when things aren't clear. And then number two is the knee-jerk reaction. If you have knees like mine, my knees do not jerk. My knees make noises like a goat chewing on a tin can. And then you have analysis paralysis, solving problems too slow. That's why I'm still married. You want to call a lawyer? Nah. You want to call one? Nah, heck with it. We'll put it off. And then finally, he said, if you if you want to make a point, if you definitely want to make a point, hit the table so hard so that the coffee shakes and almost spills. And he listened to that guy. So there you have it. Finally, we heard from Vivian Blade, who has a 2-year-old grandson. And she asked if anybody else was a grandparent. Vivian, I happen to be the proud grandparent of a 3-year-old granddaughter. And you probably noticed it too. I noticed we have so very much in common. She walks very well, occasionally will fall down. Me too. She's fully potty trained. Once in a while, there's an accident. Once again, I'm in on that. We both look forward to naps, and occasionally she'll say something and ramble on that you don't understand, and people will just say, uh-huh. Happens to me a lot. All right. Now you're an influencer. I always thought I wanted to be that, but I want to be like a bad influencer. I want to be the guy that talks you into doing stupid stuff. And to earn celebrity, you have to go from influencer to influential to a person of influence, which that seems like a long trip. You influence, that's all you do. And then she talked about the chameleon who changes colors. This is for authenticity. Chameleon changes colors. I had one of those when I was a kid, and I took it home and I put it on a piece of plaid fabric, and he exploded. Didn't know what to do. I was talking to a guy at a bar one night, and he said, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a comedian." He said, "Oh yeah, change colors." So be adaptable and artificial. How do you adapt? Jack Daniels works for me, but it's not for everybody. And her last line, which I found to be very poignant, it's more about how you live than what you do. And I tend to live every day like I want to have fun. And I'd like to bring that fun to your meeting. If you go to my website, there it is, and send me an email, I'll send you a present. I'm not going to say what it is yet because, I don't know what I can find in the garage. But do that. Thank you. Bring me to your meeting. I guarantee it'll get more people talking. They'll understand stuff more, and everybody will have more fun.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate that. It's always a joy to listen to Dale's updates at any meeting that I'm lucky enough to attend where Dale's there. Hey, for all of you association execs that took the time to attend today's showcase, thank you so much. Appreciate it immensely. And just to remind you that we will have our holiday showcase with a whole bunch of speakers in the middle of December. So with that, we'll say adios, and we will see you next month.